Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Todd Sylvester, here with us today. He is a mental fitness coach and he empowers clients worldwide through personalized mentoring. His own recovery journey inspires millions. Best-selling author and speaker, and married 32 years to his sweetheart, 4 children, 3 grandchildren, and 1 on the way. We're so excited to have you here today, Todd. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, great to be here. Actually, that one that was on the way is now here, so I have 4 grandchildren now.
Oh, fun. I
Yeah.
love it. How old is your oldest grandchild?
7.
Okay,
7
nice.
years old. Yeah, she's in 2nd grade, so yeah, she's great.
So just starting the grandparenting journey then?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's what everyone says it is. It's amazing. We love it. So it's been a lot of fun, and we look forward to hanging out with them every week.
I think about that a lot, that next stage, and I'm like, I think I'm going to be an even better grandmother. I hope. I don't know yet, but than a parent.
Yeah, it's usually true. You make all your mistakes with your own kids, and then you realize later, oh, okay, that was a mistake. I can be better this time.
Absolutely. My daughter, I tell her all the time, my oldest, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're our guinea pig. There's really nothing we can do about that, but
Right.
I'll just apologize a lot. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Todd, in your own words.
Yeah. As you mentioned in the intro, I'm a mental fitness coach. I've been doing that for over 30 years now. It stems from a drug addiction that I had for almost 10 years. I started drinking when I was 11 that led to a full-blown addiction. And so, unfortunately, I started really early, but gratefully I got out of it without dying. And I've just dedicated my life to helping other people. I'm also married to my sweetheart for 30 plus years as well. And she's been really solid support in my journey. I have 4 kids that are just doing amazing things. None of my kids, thankfully, have never gone down the path I went through with drugs and alcohol. And I think a lot of it has to do with open communication with my children that I learned from my mentor, who taught me to just be open and honest with my children about my story, which I've been very open with it. And it's been fantastic to have that relationship with my kids. I'm also a counselor at Wasatch Recovery. I've been there 12 years. I do my own podcast that's been going for almost 7 years now, maybe almost close to 8 actually. And yeah, I get to speak all over the world. I get to do amazing podcasts like this, and I wouldn't trade anything at all for what I went through to get this. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a nutshell of my life.
That's amazing. It sounds like you have your hands in a lot of different things and really
Yeah.
inspiring and helping people through your struggles and challenges that you've had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of curiosity, do you have a favorite part in all of the things that you're doing that just really makes your soul sing?
I guess the favorite part is watching a client who, when I meet them, they're just lost. They have self-hatred. They're lost in despair. To see them work through the things to get through that and watch them change before my very eyes, that's my favorite part of this whole thing. I don't have one particular thing that's I love more than the other. I like it all. But just watching a client go from despair to loving themselves again and then thriving in life, that's where I get my greatest joy, I guess, in my work profession. And then obviously with my family, just hanging with my family is the greatest thing, to be able to just be with them.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And
Yeah.
not just changing that one life, but I always love thinking about the ripples, like everyone they encounter, their family, how much we can do
Yeah.
to help and lift each other and where that goes. I know we don't even know the half of it.
Yeah. The ripple effect, you don't just affect that one life, you affect many lives around them. And who knows, you're affecting generations. It's hard to think about that, but if you do contemplate, that can be really overwhelming in a good way. And that's why when they say, if you can save one life, would it be worth it? And the truth is, yeah, because the ripple effect, as you mentioned, is real and it's powerful.
Absolutely. So you mentioned just a minute ago about how you're a mental fitness coach. Can you take us a little bit more down that road? What is it that you do? What does that look like and why? You said it, you
Yeah.
mentioned it a little bit, but go a little deeper for us.
Yeah. I work with a lot of clients who have drug addiction. They struggle with all that kind of stuff. They struggle with depression, anxiety. And I often will say to my clients, you don't have a drinking problem or a drug problem or an anxiety problem or a depression problem. You have a thinking problem. And because we all struggle with controlling our own thinking. And it starts when we're young. And it's just one of those things that we all wrestle with, and some worse than others, depending on what we go through. And obviously, circumstances and environment, and there's a lot of factors that play into it. But it all boils back down to the story we tell ourselves. The most powerful force in the human psyche is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And the psyche is the mind, spirit, and soul. And so what I do is I help my clients identify what's the current story you're telling yourself, what's the current narrative. And without fail, it's a very negative, it's a very destructive, it's a very vicious story typically. And no wonder they don't feel so good about themselves. And I help them identify that, and then I help them change that. And what that change sounds like is really comes down to changing our belief system about ourselves and about our world, which takes a lot of work, obviously, and a lot of practice and a lot of effort. But I'm telling you, that's where permanent change happens. I can tell my clients, hey, stop slamming heroin, right? And they're like, know that, Todd. I want to talk about what are the beliefs that lead to that behavior, because our beliefs dictate our behavior 95% of the time. And so that's where I really tap into with these clients is what's the current story? What's the current belief system? And then we go and attack that. And then behavior will follow if we change that belief system.
Absolutely. And can you remember what it was that you told yourself and the beliefs that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Every one of us, when we're growing up, we just struggle with believing that we're good enough. We just do. We're always trying to fit in. We're trying to find ourselves. And some kids find it early and they like, hey, I'm good. And then others really wrestle with it. And I really was one of those ones that wrestled with it. I was a really skinny kid when I was younger. And I'll never forget, I was in seventh grade. I was up in my room and I could overhear my mom and her friends in the kitchen laughing at how skinny I was. And I knew I was already skinny, but for some reason, when I heard them laughing, I felt like, oh my gosh, I guess I look funny. And it was devastating. It wasn't the start of my negative thinking about myself, but man, it did not help. And so I just had this belief that I looked funny. I was stupid. I really struggled in school. I was in resource classes. I got a 5 on the ACT. I was really in a rough spot, but it was all because of the story I was telling myself. I was stupid. I was no good. I was no girl's ever going to want to marry me or be with me. And it was so vicious. That's what really ultimately led me to coping with alcohol and drugs. That's not why I started alcohol and drugs. It was more of curiosity, but what led me to cope with it was that narrative. I was trying to drown that out. And
Yeah.
so that's how it all started for me.
It often goes to many of those things like I'm not good enough, or like trauma, but there's limiting beliefs that really prevent us from changing those stories that we tell ourselves that we get stuck in that prevent us from really changing. And it sounds like you help clients and lots of people discover what they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
beautiful. Very fulfilling work for sure. So, how do you help clients overcome that self criticism? And what tips or strategies do you have that are effective, maybe even in identifying what that story is if they're not really aware of it?
Yeah, great question as well. Because usually we don't pay attention to that story that we're telling. It just runs automatically behind the scenes. We usually put on a mask. Hey, how you doing? And we always say, I'm good, I'm fine. But underneath the surface, on a subconscious level, there's this negative narrative going on. And what I do is I help my clients, let's tap into that. Let's really get vulnerable because it's a vulnerable thing to go there, honestly. I call it the bully playlist because that negative voice feels like a bully, right? Just to really
Mm.
simplify it, is what's the negative narrative? We're going to call that the bully. And I have my clients do this thing called the bully playlist, where they literally write down all the negative things they tell themselves. And I even have them go back in their mind to their childhood. What are some of the negative things that were cultivated as a young child that maybe you still wrestle with today? I also work with a lot of people who struggle with body dysmorphia. Write those things down. I hate my hair. I hate my face. I hate my ear, whatever it is. And I have them do this. Because if we're not aware of the story, how are we going to change it? So,
Right.
what this does is it creates awareness. Now, when they have this written down, I'm like, we review it and I say, now we're aware. Here is the story. This is what we need to go and attack. And so the very next simple step is I have them do a thing called the champion playlist where they literally take the negative and they flip it and add their name. So, for instance, if on their bully list it says I'm stupid, if I was doing it on the champion list, I would put I taught him brilliant. Now, again, very simplistic, but again, simplicity is where the power is at. So, negative narrative, the bully list, positive narrative, the champion list. Now we have two different stories looking at us. They don't typically at all believe the champion list in the beginning, which makes a lot of sense. But this is the beginning stages of me teaching them the steps that help them break out of that. And we can get more into detail, but that's the starting point, honestly, to help someone be aware of what the negative narrative is.
Absolutely. And we do elements of that in trauma therapy too,
Yeah.
changing those beliefs. And all of this is getting into that deeper mindset shift. You talked about even that thinking in the beginning, like really changing their
Yeah.
thinking, changing those neural pathways. So that's beautiful. I'm glad that you're able to help people see that and shift that so there can be that lasting change. Right.
Yeah.
So, how do you balance personal fulfillment with all of your responsibilities? You said you have your hands in a lot of different things.
Yeah, I heard this once. This guy was a billionaire even, and they were asking him, "What's the definition of success?" And everyone's expecting some financial answer, right? Because he's a billionaire, right? His answer was so profound, and I never forgot it. He said, "True success is that when your kids are older, they want to hang out with you."
I
And
love
I thought, you know what? There it is. And I'll be honest with you, my greatest joy is to be able to hang out with my kids. The weekend over, all my kids are now basically out of the house and they're married and I was grandkids, but they still want to hang out with grandma and grandpa here. And that to me is where I get fulfillment is spending time with them. Matter of fact, to be honest, on Saturday, I took my two oldest grandkids on a date and I spent 4 hours with them on Saturday. We went to the library, we went to the mall and rode the train, we went and checked out a couple books. I bought them a couple little gifts. We went and had lunch. And I'm not kidding, we spent 4 hours with each other and it was just the joy of my life. And to connect with my two little grandkids, that's where I get my fulfillment is I'm connecting with my family on a really authentic levels. And I really have to make sure that I do that because I can get lost in my work because I am so busy.
it.
So I got to be very careful to make sure I have that balance. But that's where spending time with them and connecting with my family is where I find my balance.
Oh, that's beautiful. I was just talking to my cousin about this weekend, actually, and we're talking about what we want our kids to have from their grandparents. And
Mm,
it was not these to dos of cleaning their house, doing this, doing
right.
that, chores, whatever. It was simply making these positive experiences, these positive memories of just that
Yeah.
present time. And it sounds like you provided that for your grandkids and how memorable that is because we don't ever know how long we're going to be on this earth.
Absolutely. So yeah, make sure it counts. And that's a memory that I'll never forget too.
I feel like I can learn from that as well. I have a child that's going to be going to college in the fall, and
Oh, nice.
I even want to start it now. Okay, what would it take for you to want to continue hanging out with me and really make this relationship even better? What can I
Yeah.
do to improve that now?
Yep.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
All right, another question for you. What simple practices can listeners incorporate into their lives to improve their own life fulfillment based on the things you teach your client?
Yeah, I love that question. I call it the 1% principle. And everything, by the way, that I'm talking about is someone taught it to me. And my good friend Zach Sorensen taught me this thing called the 1% principle. And what that is if you were to spend 1% of your day working on you, you would have less anxiety, less depression. You'd have more self love, more self worth. You'd have more confidence, more energy, better relationships. And I would ask my clients, if that's the result of the 1%, would you be willing to do it? And they all say, yeah. 1% to be precise is 14 minutes and 24 seconds of your day. So if you round that to let's say 15 minutes, if you spent 15 minutes in the morning starting your day off right, it could be you could start with a prayer or a meditation. You do your affirmations, if you will. You could read from a book. You could listen to a podcast. You could write 3 or 4 thank you or appreciation letters to people that you love and concerned about. You could literally call people for 15 minutes. Have you ever done this where you call, "Hey, I'm just calling you. I haven't talked to you in a long time. Just want you to know I love you." "What, is everything okay, Todd?" "Yeah, everything's fine. I just want you to know I love you." If you do that for 15 minutes, just call people for 15 minutes. I'm telling you what, that 1% principle is a game changer. I do a thing called my hour of power, which I spend an entire hour working on me outside of even physically working out. So basically 4% of my day. But if for those who are listening, so really simple, easy way to start, 1%. Just take that 15 minutes, get up in enough time to work on 15 minutes, and you can make it your own, whatever really resonates with you. If it's meditation, if it's a walk, if it's whatever works for you. But if you do something, you're going to get something, if that makes sense. So that's what I do. I do an hour on that. Took me a long time to get to that spot, but that's what really helps me stay focused and centered on my own mental health and my own strength around those kind of things.
Oh, Todd, you're definitely speaking my language because I speak a lot about this on the podcast, but Jim Rohn talks about these things,
Yeah,
John Maxwell, all of this, like
yeah,
how much we would improve the lives of everyone around us, or just in general, our lives, if we just do that tiny little thing to improve ourselves personally. And that 1% principle, I love that it's mapped out. So 15 minutes and trying it out,
yeah.
experimenting, seeing if you really do improve your personal life, your family life, that ripple effect, all of that from just 15 minutes a day.
Yeah, and the key though too, I wanna add is consistency. If you try it for a few days and then you just stop, nothing's gonna happen. But if you stay consistent, meaning you're consistent 4 or 5 times a week you're doing this, and you just
Mhm.
stay consistent with it. It's like going to the gym and working out. If you stay consistent, you're eventually gonna get in shape, you're eventually gonna feel better. But if we quit before we get the reward, then we'll never experience it. So the key is, yes, that's what we do, but then just be consistent. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Get back on the horse, if you will, the next day and do it again and just build that consistency and that habit.
Absolutely. I put it in my planner every day. Love checking
Yeah.
it off. Not everybody's a planner person, but whatever it takes for you to just do that and do
Yeah.
it consistently. And I also
Love
do
it.
the power hour too. Love breaking that down. Just lights me up. It's not surprising because we're both in this space. We love that stuff. Not
Yeah.
everybody does, but it is game changing when you do.
Yeah.
So, do you mind sharing a recent story of someone you've mentored who achieved that significant growth and what
Yeah.
made that impactful?
Yeah. Wow, that's a tough one because I've had so many over the years, been doing this 30 years, but one that comes to mind right now is a client of mine named Eric. When I met Eric, he was in his mid-50s and he was a heroin addict and really struggling in his life. Lucky to be alive, honestly. You don't hear about that. Heroin addicts usually don't make it past the age of 30. So here he is in his mid-30s, and I have him do his bully list, right?
Yeah.
And when I had him read it off to me, at the very top of the list, and he's emotional as he's reading this, it says, "I'm stupid." And I stopped him, and usually when people put that at the top of their list, it's usually the one they wrestle with the most because it's right there. And I looked at him and I said, "Where did that come from?" And he said, "When I was in 5th grade, Todd, I was at parent-teacher conference, and I overheard the teacher tell my parents, 'Your son's not very bright.'" So this poor kid, Eric, hears that, and he's devastated because he wasn't supposed to hear it, first of all, but 2, he did hear it, and he was devastated, and he thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm stupid." So he started telling himself now his story has changed about himself. "I'm stupid, I'm stupid." And then he proved it by getting bad grades, hating school, and then he eventually dropped out. And then here he is 40 plus years later sitting in front of me, and I look at him and I said, "How has that held you back in your life?" And he goes, "I didn't go to college. I do low paying jobs. I walk with my head down. I isolate. I hate social situations and I'm miserable." And I looked at him and I said, "And that's why you slam heroin." He didn't even realize this. And so I had him start telling himself, "I, Eric, am brilliant." And the first time he said it to me face to face, I had him say it out loud. He couldn't do it. He was literally like, "I don't think I can say it." I said, "Just say it. I know you don't believe it, but say it." And it looked like he was gonna throw up. And he goes, I, Eric, am brilliant. And it was just literally like you get to see, Todd, I don't believe it. I go, I know, but we've got to start somewhere because that lie that you're stupid, it's just a lie. But you have said it so much for over 4 decades. You believe that's your reality, that's your belief system, right? And so, through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, having them go through those steps of saying it, feel it, visualize being brilliant, go out and be it, and then reflect. Where's the evidence that you were brilliant today? I had him start doing those simple little things, and over time and consistency, he went from stupid to brilliant. And to this day, he's going on, I think, 10 years of being clean off of heroin and meth and all the other drugs. I text him from time to time, "Hey, Eric, how's my brilliant friend?" And he'll always laugh. He goes, "I can't believe I bought into that." And I go, "You were a kid. You're in fifth grade. You didn't know how to handle that." And so to watch that transformation and how his life and behaviors changed, I didn't need to tell him to stop doing heroin. What he needed was he had to get rid of that belief from stupid to brilliant. And that was one of the most remarkable turnarounds I've ever seen.
That's incredible. And that hits a personal note for me because my youngest brother, my youngest sibling, he passed away from a heroin overdose. And the last
Oh,
conversation I had with him was about
yeah.
just wanting him to get help, not just with
Yeah,
heroin, but anything, any
sure.
trauma help, and just like pleading with him with love. I knew that had to be when he was ready. Knowing that there's people like you out there that are helping people face those beliefs that are keeping them so stuck. And in these cases, that really lead to them losing their
Yeah.
lives, right?
I'm sorry to hear that about your brother.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it just makes that work all the more important, right? The things that we do,
Yeah.
these things are nice concepts to hear, but they really do change lives. And what you're talking about here, like, how is that belief with your client that you mentioned? How has that held you back? And we all have them, right? Maybe
Yep.
it's not related to a heroin addiction, but it can be to anything. And that's keeping us maybe from being great grandparents, a great
Yeah.
parent, just a great
Right.
person, anything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
That's a great example of how that looks and how it can change our lives too. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What experiences recently have deepened your own personal fulfillment, and how do you continue to nurture your own mental health and wellness?
Most recently was that date with my grandkids on Saturday. I just felt so fulfilled and connected to them. It really just brought me so much joy. And so I think it was Johann Hari who said the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And we're never more fully alive than when we feel connected. Those kind of experiences, connecting with my own family, even connecting with my clients, obviously. That's why I love what I do. I'm so blessed I get to do what I do. That brings me a lot of fulfillment. I've already seen 3 clients this morning even, and to be able to see them walk out of here and go, "Okay, I see what you're saying, feel better about my outlook in life." To see that, I was like, "Man," again, just kinda like what you do, Kendra, like, I really am so impressed that you are willing to do what you do, and the world needs us in the sense that we went through hell to get to where we're at, so we can now help people who are in hell. And I'm grateful for it. I wouldn't change a thing of what I went through in my past if it led to this moment I get to talk to you today. And so I just try to do that 4% of my day every day to get myself right. And I take care of my body and my mind. And that personal connection with my family really helps me stay mentally strong.
Absolutely. And I love thinking about how you transform through all that hell that you just mentioned. And then through your podcast, through your clients, I already mentioned it, but then strengthening them, helping them through their limiting beliefs and helping them move forward so that they can help all of those in their path too. And just how beautiful that is to think about those webs that are, or those ripples that are being created. Is there anything else that you feel would be beneficial for listeners when it comes to taking their life to that next level or getting unstuck?
Yeah, it comes from one of my heroes, James Allen. James Allen is famous for writing the book As a Man Thinketh. He wrote it back in 1903. Many of your listeners may have heard of the book, but he's one of my heroes. And in a bunch of his other writings, he's constantly talking about there is no power in the circumstance, just in the thoughts we put around them. And that's why I always go to my clients. You don't have a drinking or a drug problem. It's a thinking problem. It's all these thoughts that are negative that you put around your own circumstances that's causing such misery in your life, right? And helping someone do that. So for those that are listening, one of the greatest truths I could tell about you, and you're going to wrestle with this, and that's okay, but I'm going to say it anyways. And it's someone told this once to me. The most delightful surprise in life is to suddenly recognize there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean we don't have stuff to work on, but to your core, you're good. You're unshakably good. And when I had someone tell me that for the first time, I didn't believe it, which again, I know some of your listeners will wrestle with this, but the truth is there's nothing wrong with this. What we have to do is learn to control our thinking, because once we do that, the circumstance, whatever it may be, it's not good or bad. It's just in the thoughts we put around it. And when we can learn to do that, man, it really is a game changer for you. It's really made a big difference in my life. And I get to experience joy most of the time. I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I'm pretty good at it because I've been doing it a long time. Yeah. Thanks for letting me share that.
Of course, and absolutely such a game changer. So you have a thinking problem. Going right back to that, and listeners
Yeah.
can go check out that book, As a Man Thinketh. I actually don't think I've read it, so I made a note to go back and read it.
Oh, you'll
So,
love it.
but
Yeah.
I know it's been around for a while. I'll check it out for sure.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Todd, for coming on the show. Is there a place that we can find you if we want to check out your podcast or your coaching?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So I have a website. It's toddinspires.com. If you can go there, and then my podcast is called a Belief Cast, and it's on all the major platforms out there. You can just look up Belief Cast on any of the platforms you listen to podcasts to. You will love it. We just posted our 425th episode, and I've had some amazing people on and amazing stories, Eric being one of them that I mentioned. And my social media handle is at TS Inspires. Love to have you check me out. If you have a question for me, feel free to reach out to me and I will definitely get back to you.
Wonderful. I'm excited to check it out, especially anything that talks about these topics like I am all about. So excited.
Yeah.
And thank you again, Todd, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure to be on your show.
Hey, friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.